Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on this marathon. It's great that we've already hit the goal, but I'm sure we can get some more money together as well because you know what the US system is like. It's expensive, so we can all come together and get some more raise today, hopefully. Welcome everyone, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, a absolute classic. I just realized I forgot to tweet out that I'm live, so while I'm giving you a quick intro, I'm going to do a live tweet that I'm live on this channel.
Yeah, go for
Um,
it.
but yeah, so just a couple of things to know ahead of time. As I just say, live for Jaguar King. There we go. Anyway, welcome GTA Vice City. So as you can see, on the menu screen here, we're playing the Japanese version, and a lot of people, very common question, why do you play on the Japanese version? It's a little complicated, and you might get more of an idea as time goes on, but just to give you a sort of quick little rundown, this is a re-release of the game that came out a couple of years after the original one, and it has a number of benefits. One of them is that dialogue is censored, so it's quicker. And also, because it's a re-release of the game, it has a different script, which means that different glitches are possible. One of them being a really big one, which is going to allow us to skip the entire second half of the game later on, but I'll get into that as we go. And yeah, that should be about it. There'll be plenty of things to talk about. I am solo commentating because my commentator's asleep or something. I don't know. He never showed. So thanks a lot, Auntie. So yeah, we'll get into it. If I don't explain absolutely everything perfectly, I do apologize. But yeah, we'll start the time in 3, 2, 1, go. So where do we begin? GTA Vice City. It's a very classic game, so I won't mansplain too much with the lore and everything. But we play as Tommy Vercetti, and basically the long story short for the lore is we took part in a drug deal gone wrong, and we need to find out why, who it was, etc. So first off, we just need to get to the hotel, and the first little speed tech here, as you can see, I'm actually mashing my right click button, which is bound to lean forward on a bike, and this actually gives you a ton more speed rather than just holding W normally. And ideally, if I'm fast enough, I want to get to the hotel at a certain time. And if that happens, I can actually skip a cutscene here that tells you about like saving the game and stuff like that. And I did. So if I now get back on the bike and get out of Dodge, we will actually be able to make use of this cutscene later. But this is where it gets complicated. So I'm going to go over to a rampage here, and I'm going to stand on top of it, press a few buttons, and then kill myself in-game, of course. And what I just did was I made a replay over the rampage. So on the PC version of this game, there are actually, it's a replay system. So you can basically, it's like an action replay. You can play back the last 30 seconds of what happened and stuff like that. That's really broken because what I did, that rampage is kind of like a submission that you can do. And essentially what I did in very, very, very short layman's terms is I did a setup so that I can start the ambulance mission, start the replay of the rampage at the same time, and now I've completely broken the game within about 1 minute and 40 seconds. So, as I do this first mission here in a very broken state, I'll give you a sort of rundown. So, there's a variable in this game called the on-mission variable, and that variable can be 0 or 1. When it's 0, you're in free roam mode, so you can save the game, you can start other missions, you can answer your phone, etc., etc. When it's 1, that means you're in mission mode, so you can't do any of those things. You can't start other missions because you're already on one, you can't save your game because you're on a mission, etc., etc. When you're on a rampage, or you're on a mission, or you're even answering your phone call, that all changes the variable to become 1. So essentially, there are a lot of things in this game that basically say, like, sorry, you're busy, you can't start a mission at the same time as doing these things. What I just did there was a way to trick the game into thinking that I'm not on a mission when I am. And that is like the ultimate bread and butter to breaking Vice City. So essentially, right now, as you can see on the top right of the screen, there is a timer counting down 54, 53, etc. And that is a rampage timer. So that rampage timer, when it expires, it's going to set my on-mission flag back to 0, no matter what. So I can abuse this to essentially chain together rampages and side missions. And you might think, like, what is the benefit of this? Like, this gameplay looks fairly normal. It doesn't look that broken, right? I'm just running the game with a timer on the side. But The mission after this one that we're about to do, this mission that we're about to start called Bakali Brawl, this is also fairly standard, but the mission after that is where you're going to see where this thing just completely breaks. So the third mission in this game is called Jury Fury, and the only objective to beat the mission is to damage 2 sets of jurors' cars in order to intimidate the jurors. As soon as you do that, the mission passes. So what's going to happen is I'm going to get myself in a position with this whole setup that I just did to essentially start the mission, and then that rampage timer is going to expire, which puts me back in free roam mode, even though I'm still on the mission. And then I can start that mission a second time, and that's called duping, or duplicating missions, right? Because I've started 2 copies of the mission, and the game does not expect you to be able to do that at all. It's very intricate. In the meantime, I'm just going to quickly grab a shotgun here, because we need a gun for some of the strats that we're going to be able to do, but that's fairly minor. But yeah, so if you start 2 instances of that mission, 2 of all of the assets also spawn. So there's going to be 2 sets of 2 cars, and they spawn right on top of each other. And when they spawn right on top of each other, they just damage themselves, and the mission instantly passes. So this entire setup, it doesn't look like much, but it's basically a way to skip the entire third mission. And it saves quite a nice chunk of time. So here, I'm going to reactivate the rampage. It's exactly the same as what I said before. I just played a replay of me picking up the rampage from before when I killed myself at the start of the game. And now we're basically just on a timer. So we've got this Back Alley Brawl mission that we're on, and all we've got to do is we've just got to finish the mission and then get to the start of Jury Fury before that rampage timer runs out. So it's pretty easy to do. I give myself a fair bit of leeway. We have around 20 seconds or so, and that also gives me time to answer a call in between. So when it comes to phone calls, GTA 3 had pages, which are just ones that you can read. GTA Vice City has actual phone calls that are completely unskippable. And then SA, San Andreas, they implemented phone calls that are skippable. So Vice City is like the unfortunate middle child between the two, because it's the only game that has like unskippable phone calls that are pretty annoying to deal with. So phone call routing is like a big part of this game, because you basically need to figure out like the most efficient times to take phone calls. And as you can imagine, if we're waiting on this rampage timer anyway, and it's just literally nothing we can do to speed it up, we may as well take phone calls. As you can see, I also have movement in this cutscene. That is because I skipped the cutscene earlier, as I mentioned before briefly. And essentially all that did was it just made it so... Oh, God, this car. All that it did was it just made it so the cutscene with Lance at the end of Back Alley Brawl plays, and then the cutscene with the hotel that I skipped earlier plays on top. And once that hotel cutscene finishes, it gives you control again, because it doesn't expect 2 cutscenes to play on top of each other. So here's the phone call that I was describing. You know, I can press any button on my keyboard, I can't skip it. There are things we can do with phone calls later to glitch them a little bit, but for all intents and purposes right now, can't do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until it hits 3 on that timer, and then I'm going to enter the marker. So 5, 4, 3, and then I'm just going to mash to skip the cutscene. And as you'll see, the mission will start a second time, and I'll skip the cutscene a second time. And you'll know that it's duped because there's 2 guys, 2 cars, 2 hammers, etc. And now all we do is just get on the bike and wait a few seconds. And mission passed, just like that. So that's that entire setup, and that's the payoff for it, is starting Jury Fury and completing it immediately. So it saves a good chunk of time. There is going to be plenty more duplicating mission shenanigans later on, so don't worry if you didn't quite catch up. I'll give you some more background on it later on. But yeah, these missions going forward are going to be fairly normal. There are definitely strategies and stuff, don't get me wrong. Pretty much every mission has a way to break it in some way, but we're not going to be duplicating the missions for a while at least. So instead what we're going to be doing is, this mission is a really simple one. We have to blow up some... what are they called? Like vans? Like Spanned Express vans or something? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna park my bike here, and there's an explosive barrel to blow up these 2, and then that shotgun that I picked up during Back Alley Brawl, I'm gonna use that to just nuke this one. Then I'm gonna shoot the barrel and death warp again, because the mission's already passed, so it doesn't matter if I die. And then this actually spawns me at the hospital, which is right next to my next mission location. So this is ideal. We need to take another phone call in order to unlock Cortez's missions, so we're going to do that now. And once I do that, I'm going to set up a thing called sliding. So as you can see now, usually you can't sprint when you're taking phone calls, but you can do a thing called sliding. So I don't know exactly how it works, but basically you hold a certain movement key, and then you press another movement key, and like a frame later you play a replay, and it just kind of like bugs out your animation and allows you to move way faster than if you were just kind of jogging like I am here. So it's a good middle ground. If you don't have the option to sprint, then sliding is the next best thing, essentially. So, Treacherous Swine. This is the pay and spray tutorial. Pay and sprays in GTA are essentially, if you don't know, they're essentially ways to remove your wanted level, which is just the cops being after you, essentially. So if you commit a crime, you're a naughty boy, and then the cops come after you, you can go and pay a fee at a pay and spray to repair your vehicle. It also repairs your vehicle as well, and also technically gives it a different color, which is, aesthetically pleasing. But the main important part is that it also gets rid of your wanted level, so the cops are no longer interested in you. I'm taking a slight detour here. You might wonder why. It's because I need to come here and I need to make a replay over this specific spot. So in exactly the same way that I made a replay over the rampage before, you can also pick up things like weapons and, other stuff like that inside of replays. And it just so happens that 2 missions from now, right where I made that replay, right there's going to be a weapon pickup when I start the mission. And when I pick it up, it's going to start the next part of the mission. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a replay now when it's convenient. And then when I start the mission in a couple of missions time, I'll be able to pick up the weapon in the replay and immediately skip to the next section. But again, I'll detail that as we go. For now, we've got to kill Gonzalez. So, because we died, we only have the chainsaw, but chainsaws are extremely broken. As you see, I massacred him within seconds. And now it's time for the pay and spray tutorial, except I'm not going to do it because that's slow. So, you're intended to go and get rid of your wanted level. Hello, officer. Alright, yeah, this can happen sometimes where the police just completely stun lock you. I actually can't move right now. There we go. For some reason, they just made it so, yeah, you just can't move, nothing you can do about it. Thanks, guys. Sorry, it gives me more time to explain. So, usually you're intended to get rid of your 2 stars there by going to the pay and spray and then driving back, but that's quite inefficient. Instead, I picked up a bribe star, which removes my wanted level by 1, so now I've only got 1 star, as you can see at the top right. But the thing about only having a 1-star wanted level is eventually, as long as you don't commit any more crimes, it actually expires on its own. As you can see there, the mission's now complete because I lost my wanted level. So all that I did was, instead of going to the pay and spray, I just picked up the cop bribe right around the corner, and now I'm just heading back to Cortez's place while the mission is basically passing by itself. So skip the pay and spray, no need to do it. It's a waste of time. I'm just going to head right back to Cortez and start the next mission. This next mission is extremely simple. I'm going to skip a phone call here. So you don't have to answer your phone. You can press F, which is like your enter vehicle button if you're near a vehicle, and it will actually cancel the phone call. So we can do that. If it's an inconvenient time to take the phone call, then we won't take it here. For example, there I was ready to start the mission right there, so no point in taking a phone call. So yeah, this next mission is extremely trivial. You can make it extremely trivial just by one really simple input. So there's a thing called fall canceling in this game, and what it is when you drop off a ledge, once you hit the ground, you can press your jump key and it will skip the animation of Tommy falling over. So as you see here, I drop off the ledge, immediately press it, and now I'm caught up with this guy immediately and I can kill him. Usually you're intended to, as you see over there, there's 2 bikes. You're intended to not be able to catch him that quickly. So you would usually go and have like a chase with him to go and get that briefcase. But I was able to kill him immediately before he even got on his bike, and we're already right back, done with the mission. So it's an extremely optimal way to complete that mission. This mission is the one that I was referring to, which is the reason I made the replay in the multi-story car park. So when you start this mission, a Kruger, which is an assault rifle, spawns at the multi-story car park. But I'm just going to get on, play the replay, and as you can see, it teleports me right there.
Do I have time for a quick dono?
Oh yeah, go ahead, of course.
Yeah. Got $20 from Apache Smash. Playing Japanese re-release, co-commentators asleep. Story of D-Lime's life. Hi, Ben.
Hello, Apache. Thank you for the donation. Yeah, it's awesome to see all the support that's come through in just one day. It's been crazy. As D-Lime said at the start, nobody wants to have to deal with hernia surgeries and all the cost and extra stuff that comes with it, especially for a child as well. It's really not nice. So it's awesome that Jaguar King has that support in his community and that he's got great friends that have been able to help him out. So shout out to D-Limes for putting this together. It's been awesome. But yeah, so the guy in the white suit is Lance. He's kind of like our second in command, but as you'll see as the story goes on later, without spoiling it too much, we kind of have a love-hate relationship with Lance. So this mission is very much on a timer. We're just basically, what's the word, like babysitting a drug deal. So everybody that spawns that we have to kill is based on a timer from when you start this cutscene. So as long as I'm in time to kill the last guys, everything I do in between doesn't matter. So I can just take some time to get some health and stuff like that. If you were being super sweaty gamer world record attempts, you would go and get some grenades at this point, but I'm not going to just because this runs hard enough to commentate as it is solo. So I'm just doing like a very basic route. What instead I'm going to do is I'm going to kill all of these guys, even though they're technically my friends, because they have guns and you don't fail the mission for killing them, so why not? And we can just farm ammo off these guys because we're going to need quite a bit of ammo later on. Obviously, we've got quite a lot of missions to get through. So this is a great chance to farm ammunition without really going out of our way to get too much of it. So these guys, again, just spawn killing them as they come through. And then the next group are going to be spawning in a van. And after this is where you're going to see a really cool trick, assuming that I don't beef it. So possibly famous last words, but we'll see. Yeah, so this is going to be close replay abuse. So I made a replay over a close icon, and it allows me to do this. So what I just did was I gained control in this cutscene, because when the close replay ends, you actually gain control of Tommy. So you're intended to watch this guy drive away, and then you have to chase him on a bike, but I can just kill him right in the cutscene. And then I'm going to go to Diaz, and Diaz is going to thank me, and I'm just going to run away again, exactly the same way. So you see me here. See you later, Diaz. So we can move in pretty much any cutscene, and all that we have to do is we just have to play the replay of picking up the close icon before the replay before the cutscene starts, and then we can just go on our way and just move in cutscenes, which, as you can see, it's very beneficial. So speedruns, you guys like Out of Bounds, right? Here's the only Out of Bounds in this game. Let me try that again. This trick is impossible, by the way. I just thought I'd let you know. That's not true. It's actually really easy. I'm just bad at the game. There we go. First try. So basically what happens there is the game has like certain checkpoints where it will put you if you fall out of bounds. And it just so happens that the place out of bounds that I just accidentally clipped through by clipping through the fence with my bike happens to be on the other side of this gate. Usually you have to answer this phone call to open the gate to Starfish Island so you can start the next set of missions. But instead, I clipped through the gate first, and then I was able to take the phone call while I was running to the mission. So yeah, very brief Out of Bounds. It looks pretty stylish, but there won't be that much of it in this. There are a couple more, and we'll detail them as we go through. But yeah, Vice City isn't so much about like Out of Bounds breaking. It's more about like completely destroying the mission scripts and a whole lot of other stuff. So this drive is also impossible, by the way. I just can't drive. I can't drive bikes, as you can tell with that gate zip, and I can't drive cars. Not great, not a great arsenal of skills for a Grand Theft Auto speedrunner, but here we are. So this mission is a really interesting one. This is actually one of the oldest strats that was ever found. This was found in like 2012, at least the original iteration of it. Obviously, strats have developed since then. But it's going to be some more close replay abuse. I'm going to gain control in this cutscene, and what I'm going to do is, usually you're intended to chase this guy all around the map before he eventually goes to his destination. But instead, I'm going to get there ahead of him. I'm going to play a close replay, and I'm going to steal his car before he's able to. So I'm going to steal the car, and then I'm going to kill the driver. And then I'm going to do a bit of black magic, don't worry about this. And just like that, I am driving this guy, and I'm able to drive him straight to his destination. I have no clue how it works with like me. I basically deleted him from the game, as you can see. because he's just like, you know, Tommy is in the car and I'm just sat on top of him. I have no idea why that specifically happens, but the main part that you need to know is that we can drive him straight to his destination rather than him usually driving like all the way around the map. And then I'll also play a close replay here to gain control in the cutscene again. This is very minor. It's just so I can drive a bit forward while the cutscene is still playing. So here's the next out of bounds. Just gonna drive this vehicle into the ocean. And as you can see, I'm not dead. Usually if you drive any other car into the ocean like this, you would just straight up die. But instead, I'm clipping through the ground, and eventually the game is going to, as you can see, teleport me onto the other side, which is actually on the other side of the barrier. Usually you're not intended to get to downtown this early, but we can actually use this to our advantage to grab a Vice City News helicopter. And Vice City News helicopters are extremely useful because we can essentially use it to fly straight across the map, right? These next couple of missions are quite annoying to deal with if you're just driving around, because soon we're going to unlock this next island, the one that I currently don't have access to. And as you can imagine from like a game design perspective, once you unlock an island, you want to have the missions on that new island, right? So all of the missions involve, at least like the next 3 or 4, involve us going to various places on this new island and then driving back and so forth. So as you can imagine, what's the best way to get over a huge amount of water instead of driving all the way around the bridges? It's just to fly over. So we're going to land our helicopter behind the mansion here. This landing is deceivingly tricky because these hitboxes on the things to the side, as you see, I hit one there. They're absolutely massive. And now I'm going to pull out an assault rifle. I'm going to take the phone call and I'm going to aim at the same time. And what this has done is it allows me to sprint while taking phone calls. So as I said before, there is a little bit of trickery you can do with phone calls, but we can't speed them up. All that we can do is allow ourselves to sprint while taking them, which is, it's more efficient, but the phone call itself still takes the same amount of time. But it means that I can be here, which is where the next mission starts, as soon as the phone call is finished. So this has been on pen. This is basically a full-on aim test. If you're like a global elite or something in CS:GO, then you probably have no trouble with this mission. But closed replays are also abused massively here. So I played a closed replay, and then I right-clicked, and it's actually given me control. You're not usually supposed to be able to see Tommy or Lance or be able to move your camera much at all. And this kind of breaking out of the kind of forced turret mode that you're in actually also breaks the gun. So this gun that I have is usually very slow, but it's very powerful. But now, it's very fast and very powerful. You can nuke entire vehicles within 0.2 of a second, as you can see. And essentially the only reason, I don't know exactly why it works, but for some reason when you play a closed replay, that's hard to say all of a sudden, and go out like this, you actually shoot at 1 bullet per frame. So this game runs at 30 frames per second. So I'm shooting at 30 bullets per second, basically, which is astronomically high. So it means that we can essentially just spawn camp all of these guys. Usually this mission is quite tricky because of the fact that you usually have quite a slow gun and you might take a bit of damage, but yeah, this is, it's very silly. And we're just gonna nuke everyone the second they spawn into view, basically. This guy, these 2 guys on the basketball court. I prioritize the guys on the basketball court because Lance kind of sways his helicopter, and if he's swaying on the left side over here, these guys don't actually spawn in, so you can't see them. So they're a high priority. And then we can kill the other guys in the meantime. And then here, I'm going to do a specific setup to do something. Even if you thought that was silly, this is very silly. Again, assuming that I don't beef it, I'm going to shoot Lance and kill him. And now I'm on a very strict timer because the mission is about to fail. But if I'm quick enough, I can actually run upstairs, grab this to trigger the end of the mission just before the mission failed because I killed Lance. Obviously, the game never intends you to be able to even look at Lance, never mind shoot him. But if you shoot him with very specific timing, he will drop down the helicopter faster because he's dead and no longer flying it, and you can pass the mission just before it fails. Yeah. Now that is some silly gameplay, if you ask me. So, going from quite a complicated mission to a very easy one. This one is the fastest boat, and anyone, if you guys have a copy of GTA Vice City, fire it up right now, get to this mission, and I'll show you how to speedrun it. All that you need to do is make sure that your F key is working on your keyboard, and you're good to go. Literally, all you need to do is drive to the docks. I suppose you need your WAS and D keys to work as well, but that doesn't sound nearly as cool. So let's go with just the F key, okay? Get down to the docks, and we're going to basically skip the entire mission by driving through here. I'm gonna skip the cutscene that plays. There it is. So get out the car. Gonna walk over here and press F. And just like that, I teleported into the boat that you would usually have to fight through a bunch of guys to lower down, and we can just drive to the end of it. That's it. Literally all you do is press F and you skip the entire mission. So how does that work? So, as you know, you can't swim in Vice City, right? And there are also boats, but there's no like an animation to enter or exit boats properly. So what the developers did was they just made it so if you press your enter vehicle key, which is F, within a certain radius of the boat, then you'll just teleport in. And it just so happens that that radius is big enough that we can run right next to it and just teleport into it. And because we teleported into it and we're in the boat, the game thinks, oh, you're in the boat, good, and drops it. And there you go. Problem solved, just like that. So, to quickly explain what I was trying to do there, I'm just kind of waiting on the phone call. I was trying to glitch a car in the meantime, but it's not a big deal if I don't get one. That was quite an inconvenient location, so I chose to not follow through with it. But essentially, glitching cars is, you might have seen that I did it on the chase when I was shooting, I was like drive-bying a car and then playing replays. But if you missed it, essentially all that you do is you shoot a car, and once the driver exits the car, like once he's in the animation of exiting the car, you play a replay, and that gets them like stuck in limbo. They're not in the car anymore, but they're not out of the car. They're just in like a weird state where they're kind of in, as I say, literally in limbo. I can't think of a better way to describe that, actually. And what that does is it actually makes that vehicle stick in the game's memory, no matter what, with a few exceptions. The only way to get rid of it is to destroy the car or to like save and load the game. But for all intents and purposes, usually when you drive away from a vehicle that's in regular traffic, it will despawn after you get a certain amount of way, right? Like once you get so many steps away. Because this game is quite old, so it only has a certain amount of memory that it can allocate towards things like traffic. But we can actually use that in our favor, because the game has such limited memory, if we glitch enough cars and get them in that stuck state, the game won't be able to spawn any more in traffic, because it's already spawning these cars in that are stuck, and then it just simply can't do any more. So once we get to a point where we have 3, 4, 5, 6, if we're lucky, glitched cars, there will just be no more traffic on the road. And that is extremely beneficial, because traffic is one of the only random elements in this game. As you can imagine, you can be sometimes driving down the street and you just get absolutely screwed by cars pulling in front of you or whatever. So that essentially removes that random chance. And it just means that you're never going to deal with traffic on the road. So it's very beneficial. So here, we've just killed all of the different boats on the way back. Lance is driving us, so we can't speed this up. I deliberately killed only the gunner here and not the driver. Because if you kill the driver, the boat will obviously stop driving. And Lance might hit it and flip and kill us both. So it's much more efficient. The driver doesn't attack you, and we don't need to kill him to pass the mission. So it makes more sense to just not kill him. And here, we're going to use the close replay again. Play it at just the right time to gain control in the cutscene. So we don't care about what Lance has to say. Shut up, Lance. We've got better things to do. And if you could hear that, I'm actually getting in my helicopter, which I parked around the back of the mansion prematurely. So now I'm in the helicopter. And we can fly straight to our next destination, which is again over the water. So very beneficial to have this helicopter. And we're going to keep using it for another like 10 minutes or so. Or even more, actually. So this next mission is a really good meme. We have to steal a tank from the military. And you might think, goodness me, that sounds like a hard mission. It's actually one of the easiest missions in the game. because the army in this game are horrific in terms of stopping you from stealing the tank. It's like they want it to be stolen for, like, I don't know, tax purposes or insurance or something. But before we do that, we're actually going to make a quick little detour to this ice cream factory here. And we're going to make a replay over the icon to purchase it. So this is going to give us a number of benefits. The first one is that if you purchase a property inside of a replay, which I'll show you later, it doesn't actually cost you any money. So we're going to need to buy a couple of businesses, and if we just bought them normally, we wouldn't have enough money. Back in the day, if you watched Vice City speedruns in like the Adam AK days, you would know that they used Cone Crazy to boost money, but that's not necessary anymore due to that glitch. So we just kill this gunner, and they just get out of the tank for whatever reason, and I just get in, and that's it. I've stolen the tank. Simple as that. The army are really not a threat. It's kind of embarrassing. But yeah, so the other thing, which is really beneficial to us, is that if you purchase a property inside of the replay, the game thinks that you're actually physically at the place, so it teleports you inside of a cutscene. So what it essentially means is, no matter where we are, we can teleport to the asset at free will, basically. We have a one-time use teleport that we can use to get anywhere in the map, as long as there's an asset there. So we're going to use that to our advantage later on. But for now, this is a point where we need to wait for a Lance phone call, and the Lance phone calls are very long. So we're going to use this opportunity to hopefully glitch some more cars. I'm going to wait until the phone call comes in deliberately, because if I start shooting my gun and glitching cars, I can get a wanted level, and you can't get phone calls when you have a wanted level. So this is the glitching cars. You can see that they're kind of getting weirdly stuck. And I'll glitch this one as well. And that should give me 4 glitch cars, which is a really good amount. Now we're just going to head back to our helicopter and go to Death Row. I'll actually glitch this one to be safe. I usually wouldn't because it'll cost me a bit of time, but marathon, better to be safe than sorry, right? Not like I'm going for a PB or anything, so yeah, Death Row is the next mission. This one is quite an infamous one. It's the one where you got to save Lance from the scrapyard. This was the classic mission that I could never beat as a kid, but I beat it as an adult because, you know, you're better at games when you're an adult, right? It wasn't even that hard. But you have this like nostalgia factor of like, oh god, this mission was impossible when I was a kid. This is that mission for me. A lot of people have that with Demolition Man, which is like the RC one where you got to go and plant a load of bombs. Sadly, we won't be doing that mission because it's actually optional. A lot of people don't know that, but that mission is actually optional. So we need to take another phone call from Kent Paul to actually unlock this mission.
Paul, I might have a little result for you, but I need to speak to you in person. I'm enjoying a little R&R at the Club Malibu. I reckon you're going to owe me a favour or two.
And as you can imagine, having a helicopter for this mission just completely trivializes it. It's a common theme in Vice City if you haven't already noticed. So we're going to fly straight to the scrapyard. And usually, you would go to the entrance of the scrapyard, which is what that pink marker on my minimap is referring to. And you would have to fight all the way through a bunch of guys that are defending, essentially, the guys that are interrogating Lance. And then get him out somehow. And when you get him out, like, once you save Lance and you exit the compound, there's a bunch of guys that follow you in much faster cars than you have. And that's where it becomes a real problem. Getting him to the hospital is such a pain. But instead, we're going to skip that, and we're just going to go right to where Lance has been taken with the helicopter. Park here. I'm going to re-enter the helicopter to be safe, just to make sure it doesn't despawn. Probably not necessary, but again, it only takes a second. I'm going to kill this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. This guy is the only required guy. The other ones are just for safety, so Lance doesn't die. And then I'm going to save him, and then we can just run straight to the helicopter and fly over all of the enemies and take him straight to the hospital, which, as I say, just completely trivializes this mission.
Sure, I guess. Nice to see you too.
So it's very important when you have Lance that you hold your sprint key instead of tapping it. That's something I actually forgot to mention. Usually, in order to basically gain like infinite sprint in this game, you can actually tap your sprint key at a certain rhythm, and you'll have a lot longer like amount of stamina before you need to sort of recharge it. But if you do that with Lance, he won't sprint after you and follow you. So I need to make sure that I'm holding my sprint key the entire time to make sure that he always kind of runs at me. But the problem with Lance's AI is that he runs at you in a straight line. So you've also got to take a really specific pathing route that you saw me do there to make sure that he doesn't get stuck on things. Because he'll just run into a wall if you make him. You know, he just does exactly what you tell him to do. Bless him. But yeah, so that pink text was saying like, oh, Diaz's guys are after you, watch out. We're already at the end of the mission, so. And this is going to be the sort of finale of the first half of the game. So, quick lore update for you while I drive to the next, fly to the next mission. So, Diaz, that guy that we protected in that drug deal gone wrong, who owns the mansion on Starfish Island, he was actually the guy who busted our drug deal at the start of the game. So we need to get revenge on him because he killed a bunch of our men and he stole our money and our drugs that we were dealing, and it was just not a very nice person. So this mission is us overtaking his mansion and killing Diaz, and that's like basically like the end of the linear portion of this game. So I'm going to park my helicopter in a specific place. There are certain locations that you can park. This is the safe one. Again, just to make sure that it doesn't despawn. Because if you park it in the wrong place, you can despawn your car if you're not careful. So I'm going to set up another slide here. This is a very, very minor optimization, but we have to wait on the phone call anyway, so why not set it up? And all this does is if I sit here, which is where the mission's going to start, this will just make it so I slide instead of slowly walking right at the start of the mission. It saves like a second, but there's no reason to not set it up because you're waiting on the phone call anyway. So you see there, I got like a little boost of speed.
This place is gonna be crawling with assholes. Be careful.
So, usually you're not allowed to go through the front door because it's locked. The game even tells you to find another way around, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, this bit of doorway is questionable. You can just sprint right through it. Here's Diaz. Because we never went through the intended way, his AI isn't activated. And now we're going to activate the cutscene that would usually activate the fight with Diaz, but it's just going to pass the mission because Diaz is already dead. So we just clip through the front door. Diaz is not even... Diaz is not even expecting us because we're so quick. We chainsaw him through the wall and then just mission passed, just like that. So, Shakedown is the mission where you get introduced to the sort of asset system. So after this mission is where the non-linear portion of the game starts. So when I mean non-linear, it's not a linear mission structure anymore, but until now we were just going from mission A to mission B, mission C, etc. But after this, the sort of structure of the missions entirely change. After this, we can do any missions we want to progress towards the end of the game. And not only can we do any missions that we want, but we also don't have to do certain ones in order to progress. The way the end of the game works is that you need to complete the Vassetti Estate asset, which is what we're doing now, doing the Vassetti Estate missions. You need to complete the Printworks asset, which we'll be doing later. And then you need to complete 5 other assets of your choice by purchasing them and doing the missions that they require of you. So there are more than 5 assets that you can do. So you can purchase the most efficient ones in a speedrun, but we're going to do something even better, but we'll get to that later. Speaking of random things that can happen in this game, these windows are actually luck-based, if you destroy them or not. The first bullet will never destroy the window, and then every subsequent bullet has a percentage chance to break it. So technically speaking, you could lose a lot of time on this mission if you're unlucky. I'm going to purchase some armor, some grenades, and a sniper rifle here. These will be used later on. The grenades specifically will be used in a lot of places. One of them is actually right now. No point in going all the way up there to destroy the windows. We can just throw some grenades with some not really precise lineups. And then we just need to destroy these final 5 windows. As you can see, these are kind of taking a long time. There we go. And now we're going to do the buy warp that I mentioned back towards Cherry Poppers. So that's the ice cream factory that I've made the replay for. I'm going to get in this car, and I'm going to buy the replay inside the asset. And that has done a million different things. So number 1, it's teleported me to the asset, which is right next to the mission that I want to do next. Number 2 is it's allowed me to buy this asset, which I'm going to need for later in the run without spending any money. As you see, I have 73,000. I always had that. And also, as you can see, it's put me in this really weird state. If you listen, you can actually still hear the mole music going on. I'll let it play. It's very faint, but I don't know if you can hear that little jingle. And essentially why that's so important is because the game still thinks that we're in the mall. Because technically speaking, we never left. We never exited through the door. And that's how the game decides. So that's why we're in that really weird, like, interior world. That'll be fixed once we start this mission, so don't worry about it. As we see, we're back to normal. But the game, this entire time, still thinks that we never left the mall. And the reason why that's so important is because the mission after this one, Copland, if you're spotted inside the mall during Copland without a cop uniform, you get an instant 5-star wanted level. Which doesn't sound good, because that means, like, the FBI are coming after you and blah, blah, blah. But it's actually beneficial to us in a speedrun in a very strange way. So when you start the mission, you need to steal some cop uniforms. And for that, you need police officers to kill and steal their uniforms. Now, as you can imagine, as you can kind of put 2 and 2 together, if there's a way to really easily get a wanted level, which makes cops spawn, you can get the cop uniforms really quickly. And there's your answer. Because the game thinks that we're still in the mall, as soon as we start the mission, it will give us 5 stars, because we're in the mall, technically speaking, without a cop uniform, and we'll get 5 stars immediately. And then we can use that to our advantage to immediately get the cop uniforms and progress the mission. But I'll talk more about that as we go. So there's a lot of things to talk about, and some of these things are kind of tricky, so I gotta concentrate in places. So here, I'm just gonna blow up this car. We're just gonna kill these guys. Then I'm gonna throw a grenade over, which is gonna kill the last set. I'm going to stand right here. I'm going to line up and I'm going to crouch. Crouching means that you don't like automatically run in this cutscene. And then I'm going to snipe these guys if I can. There we go. It's quite a tricky snipe, so I'm glad I got that. I'm actually going to quickly pick up this just because I lost quite a lot of ammo getting unlucky with the windows for my M4. So I don't want to run out of ammo towards the end of the game because it's pretty tight. So yeah, if you crouch, usually in that cutscene, if you don't crouch, the mission forces you to walk towards that place where the cutscene was happening, which would mess up my lineup. But instead I crouched, which means that I could set up my lineup to snipe those guys and then not move afterwards. So that's ideal. So this is the mission that I was referring to. Again, I'm going to park in the rose bushes to make sure my bike doesn't despawn. Take a phone call. And in the meantime, I'm going to go and make a save replay inside the mansion. So all this is just a replay of the save marker that you'd use to save your game. And that can also be used to teleport. It's slightly different because you can only use it to teleport in certain districts, but we're going to use that later. So now I'm going to start Copland. And as you see, as soon as I start Copland, we get 5 stars.
Okay, Lance, let's get the cops' attention.
As you can imagine, with 5 stars and the cops after you, and the FBI and everything, this is quite a tricky segment. So do excuse me while I concentrate a little bit, because if I get busted here, it's very bad news, and it's very easy. But on the bright side, you see the spike strips, FBI agents, cop cars. But it's not nearly as bad, because I glitched all those cars, the game doesn't have the memory allocated to spawn a proper set of cops on you. So as you can see, there isn't actually that much. It's more about the potential. You know, there's potential for a lot of cops. Here I'm getting quite lucky, and I have like 4 or 5 glitch cars, so it's not nearly that bad. So because we have the wanted level, that triggers these 2 cops to spawn in. You need a wanted level to get those to spawn in, and that's why that's so important. And now, even though we have Lance with us, he isn't relevant at all to this next section. So I'm going to be kind of rude. And I'm just going to abandon Lance. I'm going to run into him to kind of stagger him a little bit, and I'm just going to leave him. Even though the game is going to tell me in a second, it says, hey, you lost Lance, go back and get him. You don't need to. And that has a number of benefits. You know, Lance is ultimately a liability. He doesn't help us in any of the missions, and he can hinder us if he dies or gets stuck or anything like that. And it also skips some dialogue, because Lance usually has dialogue here, but it doesn't play if Lance isn't there. So those guys attack you on sight because of the whole 5-star thing. Thankfully, the bike takes a lot of the damage. And now that we've planted this bomb in the cafe, Lance is going to teleport to us anyway, so it's as though we had him the whole time. And now the final sketchy part, which again looks really good, no cops, which is really nice, is just getting in the helicopter and getting out without getting killed or busted. But there was no cops here. Sometimes cops can spawn right next to your helicopter, which is kind of a pain. You got to kill them, and you know, they might bust you, things like that. Sometimes they can spawn out of view and kick your ass, but it's all going pretty well. Can't complain. So now that we're done with the Vassetti Estate, this is where the big strategy happens. So there's going to be lot of things to explain, and I do apologize if I don't explain them too well, because again, as I mentioned, it's kind of hard to play and commentate at the same time. But yeah, this is where it's going to get really broken. So, as I said before, when you want to finish this game, the way you unlock the final 2 missions is you complete the Vassetti Estate, which we just did. This is literally completing the Vassetti Estate right now. There's the cutscene that says Vassetti Estate mission completed. The Printworks, which are the 2 mandatory assets, and then 5 other assets of your choice. But the game doesn't individually track the assets to see if you've completed them or not. All that it does is it has a counter of total assets completed, and once that hits 7, including the Printworks and the Vassetti Estate, of course, 5 plus those 2, then it triggers the end of it. So, I propose a question to you. What if you could complete the same asset multiple times? Obviously, the game never usually allows you to do that, but it is possible, and that's what we're going to abuse. So, right now, I'm going to go and take this call from Sonny, and I'm going to play that replay that I made of the save marker. I'm going to play it a few times just to be safe. That's going to set up a teleport. Because I'm not in the same district as the mansion right now, it doesn't actually teleport me to the mansion. Instead, it's going to make it so the next time I enter that region, it's going to teleport me. So you can essentially buffer teleports ahead of time. Now I'm going to buy the Printworks. This is the last assets that I need, so I can just buy it normally. My money doesn't matter anymore. And I'm going to save the game just to be safe, because if I mess this up, I lose 2 minutes, so it's better to have a save. There we go. And what I did was I played a replay as I hit the save marker, because the save marker, when you exit that save screen, actually puts you on mission 0 as well. So I started the rampage, and then I went on mission 0 with the save marker, and that basically allows me to... trying to talk and do it at the same time. It allows me to have this rampage running, and also, you know, simply put, be on the main mission at the same time. I was supposed to make a save replay there of the marker on top, but I forgot to do it, but that's fine. I can just make it on the way back. It's not a big deal. But the important thing now, the utmost importance, is that this next mission that we're doing, or this mission currently, sorry, not the next mission, is we're going to a boat, and there's a cutscene that plays where we interrogate a guy to get some information. And we need to get there before the rampage timer ends and the phone call ends. So the phone call is going to ring after the rampage timer ends. And if we cancel that phone call or let it expire, and then we hit that cutscene too late, we're actually going to soft lock in that cutscene because of some audio meme that I don't remember. So the important thing is that we just get there before the rampage timer expires. So in the meantime, we'll continue talking about the big strategy. So, as I said before, we can do several assets, or the same asset, several times in order to kind of trick that counter. Not only can we do that, but we can actually use a glitch that allows us to start an asset and immediately pass it. So as you can imagine, that combination is quite brutal. We can start an asset, complete it immediately, and then do that 5 times, and that's the entire second half of the game. We skip having to do 5 individual assets, all their missions, and it saves like half an hour or something daft. So here, in order to start this glitch setup, I need a phone call. And usually if I get off the bike, I would get a phone call. But I currently have a 2-star wanted level, and you can't get phone calls, as I said before, when you have a wanted level. So instead of pain spraying or anything like that, I'm going to go and pick up the cop bribes. So usually here, as soon as I get this last cop bribe, I would teleport back to the Printworks using that replay. But as I say, I forgot to make it, so we'll just make it now. But as you can see, it's like a 10-second drive, so it's really not a big deal. So, I'm going to park here. And while this phone call's ringing, I'm going to make the replay. And then I'm going to finish the mission. And what that has done is, because the mission passed, which set me on mission 0, it's actually given me what we call an on mission 0 phone call. So as you can see, that's a phone call from Lance while I'm on a mission at the same time. And what this is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to what we call insta-pass the Cherry Poppers asset. So the Cherry Poppers asset, which is the ice cream one, only has 1 mission. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into the van, and I've just passed the mission, just like that. And now I'm going to teleport back, and I'm going to start the whole process again. I'm going to do this 5 times, and that's going to give me 5 assets towards the counter. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, goodness me, how on earth does that work? It's very complicated. I'm not going to go into the in-depths of it, because obviously I'm kind of concentrating at the same time, and it's a very long-winded explanation. But essentially, all that you need to know is insta-passes are if you start a mission and then start another mission at the same time, 99% of the time, you'll crash the game. 1% of the time, in very specific instances, you will actually insta-pass that second mission. And it just so happens that the second Printworks mission, which is Hit the Courier, the mission I just started, if I start that mission, and then I enter the ice cream truck, which starts the Cherry Poppers mission, it instantly passes the Cherry Poppers mission, just like that. So this is the 3rd time I'm doing it. Mission passed again. You don't see it, because it doesn't have like a traditional mission pass thing, but this fade to black here, and that text is saying that I've passed it. So that's number 3. We're going to do this 2 more times, and that's, say, going to add it all to our counter. And then we need to actually complete the Hit the Courier mission as well to get the Printworks asset. Once we've done that, we'll unlock the final 2 missions of the game. And that is how you skip the entire second half of this game.
Hey Ben, is it cool if I read a donation?
Go for it.
Thank you. Mishutka donated $30 from Russia with love. Thanks very much for that donation, and thanks for explaining Instapasses. I still don't understand.
It's one of those things, like, I could spend an entire hour just talking about them, and it's still kind of tricky to get it, to wrap your head around it, because it's so many different glitches happening at the same time, that if even one of them doesn't make sense to you, the whole thing just falls apart, you know? So it's really difficult to explain it as you go along, while also doing it at the same time. Yeah, so that's 5. You don't need to understand it. All that you need to know is that I've just unlocked the final 2 missions of the game. All I need to do is complete Hit the Courier, which is the mission that we're on now. So,
Magic. Got it.
It's pure magic. Yeah, exactly. So Hit the Courier is a very particular mission. Hit the Courier requires you to go to the docks, get a briefcase from a helicopter that's going to land there, and there are like 100 ladies guarding it with very powerful weapons. But I have something even more powerful. Glitches. So, well, it's not even really a glitch, to be honest with you. It's more of like an exploit, because it's very much intended behavior. So if you're on a phone call, gangs don't attack you. And it also means that these ladies don't attack me, which is great. So I can basically run in here as long as I'm taking a phone call, and they won't attack me at all. But I have a lot of phone calls, and they're very long, so I'm going to do this instead. This lady here, whenever I walk into her view, she's going to tell me that I'm not welcome. And as you can see, this is the phone call audio playing, and then getting immediately cancelled by this line, because only one audio file can play at any one time. So I'm basically using this to shorten all of the lines of the call. So instead of listening to the call normally, I've just skipped that entire phone call, basically. So I know I said before that we can't really skip phone calls. We can't in the traditional means. This is the closest thing we have. So it basically means that, like, we have a load of phone calls that we need to answer before we unlock the final mission of the game. And we can use it while, we can basically use this to answer all the phone calls while the helicopter is coming down. And then still be in time, as you see here, to kill the lady who has the briefcase and get out again. And none of them attack me, as you see. Skip a few more lines. I'm going to play the replay to teleport back to the Printworks. As you see, it didn't work. That's fully intended. Because, as I say, it only happens once you get in the same region as the Printworks. So there's going to be a sign that tells me, like, as a reference, this blue sign up here. As soon as I pass it, I'm going to teleport right there. You see? And now we just finished a mission. I'm going to deliberately jump over this marker. Because I'm on mission 0, if I just walk into that marker normally, I would accidentally start the mission again, which is not what I want. Now we're done. We have a phone call. And this is the phone call for the final 2 missions of the game. And in classic GTA fashion, the hardest mission is the second to last one. So this mission is really difficult, at least to do in a speedrun. So this is Cap the Collectors. These collectors stop in a very particular place, and it's technically different every single time. What I'm going to try and do, I'm not going to waste too much time trying to do it, is I'm going to line up and I'm going to spam some bullets through the wall because sniper rifles actually go through walls in this game. I'm going to try it again. I'll only give this a couple of tries and then I'll just stop because this is quite an inconsistent shot to do. But basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to shoot them through the wall with a very particular lineup. But as I say, the lineup almost changes every single run. So I'll shoot a few more bullets, and if I don't get it, then we'll just go and kill them. That only saves like 10 seconds, so if I miss it, whatever, not really a big deal. It actually gives me more time to explain the rest of this. So, usually in this mission, these guys pull up, and they will tax your assets, right? They're not really doing that, and that is actually really good for us. Because if they did, I would fail this mission instantly. And I would actually be kind of soft-locked out of completing the game. Because we did that glitch with the ice cream asset, so that ice cream asset is our only asset. So they would tax that inside the cutscene, and then the mission would fail because I would run out of assets to tax, right? Because usually you're supposed to have assets all around the map, but I don't. But it just so happens that for some odd reason, when you only have the ice cream factory like that, as long as they don't get obstructed by traffic in the cutscene, which there's no traffic because we glitched the traffic earlier, they just get stuck. So all of these guys that will pull up to the ice cream factory, even if I don't kill them, they just get stuck and they never actually fail the mission. So it's really convenient. Those two snipes on those two moving bikes are actually way harder than they look. I'm glad that I got them, but as you can imagine, when you're shaking and you're nervous and stuff like that, those snipes are deceivingly difficult. Excuse me. So, final glitch. Well, not really final, there's plenty of them, but when we drive in here, we're actually going to teleport all the way back to the mansion. Because as I said before, when we were starting all the way back before spilling the beans, I played a save replay, which buffered, so as soon as I go into Starfish Island, it's actually going to teleport me there. So, thankfully, this mission is on a timer, and as long as I don't touch my mouse, which you can see I'm not doing, no guys actually spawn. This is very much intended to be like a standard Scarface. You know, if you've seen the film Scarface, you recognize the mansion, right? Like, this game is very heavily inspired by Scarface. And this is basically supposed to be the final scene where, spoilers, if you haven't seen Scarface, turn your audio off now. The guy has like a big one last stand, and he eventually dies. We're not going to die. But yeah, this is very much like the say hello to my little friend scene. So the intention is that infinitely spawning guys are coming at you. As I say, if you don't touch your mouse, they don't spawn for whatever reason, so we can just stand here instead. So, 60 seconds after starting the mission, Lance is going to spawn, because again, spoiler in that last cutscene, Lance actually betrays us, and he goes onto the dark side with Sonny and all the gangsters and everyone that we're going to have to deal with. So, Lance is actually our kind of penultimate boss. So there he is.
No one to cover your ass now, eh, Tommy?
And what we're going to do is we're going to run right up to him.
Oh, you think so?
We're going to punch him to stunlock him. And then we're just going to kill him with the chainsaw. And now we are on another 60-second timer where we can do anything that we want. And I'll just go and get some health to be safe because to say we're on a timer, there's no reason not to. And in another about 30 seconds from now, Sonny Forelli will spawn, who used to be our like boss back in the, you know, kind of story before this all kicked off. But now he's trying to take over our assets for himself and kind of, you know, what's the word? Like undermine Tommy, and Tommy doesn't like that. So instead, we're going to kill him. So as soon as he spawns, we're going to kill him. And then once the game fades out, that's going to be time. So just so you're ahead, D-Limes. Or you're aware, even. Bro, can you go away? These guys are not lining up. But there's Sonny as the final boss. And time will be coming up soon.
You took 15 years from me, Sonny, and now I'm gonna make you pay. You still don't get it, do you? I own you, Tommy. Those 15 years were mine to spend.
There he is. We can use our very overpowered M60. And that's time. So that's the end of GTA Vice City. We killed Sonny, killed Lance, and everyone lived happily ever after. I'm sure that's how it ends.
Tommy?
Before we go, thank you to everyone who's supporting the event, who's donated and stuff like that, all the runners. To say, very privileged to be here. So we can continue to raise some more money for Jaguar King and his daughter, because nobody wants to go through hernia surgery, especially when they're so young. So, yeah, thank you again for the opportunity to be on here, D-Limes, and thanks Apache for coming in and reading one donation.
You're so welcome. Thanks for that amazing run to open up our day 2. If you've got anything else to add, Ben, before we leave.
No, go for it. Just thanks for watching. Obviously, if you can check out my stuff if you want more GTA stuff. But yeah, I won't take the spotlight. Go for it.
No, check out his YouTube. He's got some great videos on there that are good to watch while you're working. You might not understand the game by the end of it. I watch it all day and I still don't know what's going on, but you may be a step closer. But yeah, incredible run, especially when you're flying solo. There's a lot to do, a lot to play, and a lot to explain. So you did us proud, mate. Coming up after this, we've got Boneworks by Sir Schmuckle, good friend of the channel and the community. We'll go to a short break. We'll be back with you really soon. Thanks.